Oh, it's you. Welcome back. You know, some stories don't arrive all at once. They return in fragments, in hushes, in lanterns that flicker, not with flame, but with attention. This letter, the fifth now, didn't arrive with answers. Just a direction, a place that had been listening all along. It led the Lanternkeeper to a cottage long paused, a name long unspoken, and a memory not lost, but waiting. Come close if you're ready. The hollow has just begun to hum again. Let me tell you what happened the morning the letter arrived, wrapped in green thread, and whispered, "Go to where she last listened." Morning came gently, all pale mist and bird song through linen curtains. The air was blue-toned and cool, touched by the hush that comes just before a village wakes. Dew beaded softly along the windowsill. The whisper light above it had not yet stirred, its flame still dormant beneath the glass. The world, too, seemed to wait, quietly held in the liminal stillness between dreaming and rising. The Lanternkeeper sat on the edge of their bed, feet wrapped in wool, a folded letter in their hand. The seal, green thread, once tightly knotted, had frayed, as though time itself had thumbed it open, as though it had been read before, as though the message inside was not being delivered for the first time, but returning. They read only the first line. It begins where it was once forgotten. Go to where she last listened. They did not read the rest. There was no rest. That was the letter's entire shape. No explanation, not conclusion, but an opening. A doorway. It felt less like a message now, and more like an invitation. A callback to something that had once known them. They moved through the cottage slowly, as though waking it gently. The hearth was swept with a careful hand. The teacup from the evening before was rinsed and set aside. A handful of dried lavender was tucked into the satchel beside the first four letters. The green-threaded seal, the old notebook, the sprig of rosemary, now faded at the edges, but still fragrant in the way memories are. Before leaving, they paused beside the whisper light, pressed their palm lightly to the glass. It flickered once, not in parting, but in promise. The path to Maren's cottage wound south, where the cobbled lane gave way to softer earth, moss and soil, and the quiet hush of willow lanes. The trees leaned closer here, their long green fingers trailing in the breeze. Few people came this way, not because it was forgotten, but because it was held, preserved, honored in the way sacred things often are, by stepping around them. The air had a different weight here, not heavier, but fuller, as though it remembered every footstep ever placed upon it and chose softly which ones to echo back. Bird song gave way to hush. Sunlight filtered through willow leaves and slow drifting threads, ribbons of memory, pale and golden, hanging low in the stillness. Maren's cottage waited in a hollow of overgrown thyme and smooth, familiar stones. Circular in shape, stone-built, thatched and mossy, gentle in the way ruins are when they have been loved, not abandoned. The wooden door, swelled slightly from the years of rain and quiet, bore the subtle curve of time's affection. The Lanternkeeper hesitated. Their fingers brushed the iron latch, cold with morning. And something in the silence curved back towards them, not with sound, but with presence. A hush that felt like an answer, a whisper without words saying, yes, this is the place. The door opened inward without sound, and the stillness that met them inside was deep, immediate. Not empty, but enfolding. Like stepping into a shawl stitched from shadow, lavender, and the cool breath of stone. The hearth sat cold, the table bare. A kettle rested in the coals, patient, as if waiting for someone to return from the market with honey and herbs. But no dust lay on its handle, no cobwebs touched the beams. This place had not been left behind. It simply had been paused. They stepped inside slowly, let the door close with a sigh behind them. No lanterns were lit. And yet, light drifted through the space like dappled water across old floorboards. It pooled in corners, touched the curve of a chair, settled softly on the table's edge. The Lanternkeeper walked the room's perimeter with reverence. each step quiet, each glance lingering. Here, a spindle with a thread still wound around the tip. There, a pressed flower half tucked between the pages of a book left open as though someone meant to return. It was the kind of stillness not born of absence, but of waiting. They sat before the hearth, not to light it, but to listen. A silence settled in their chest, beneath the ribs, behind the breath, and beneath that, something deeper stirred. Not sound, not thought, but a knowing. The kettle remembered warmth, the chair remembered weight, the walls remembered music, and the air remembered her. They closed their eyes, and there, beneath the hush of the room, beneath breath and heartbeat and all things waking, something took shape. Not memory, not dream, but something between, a place. They stood in a wide clearing beneath starlight. 12 lanterns ringed the space, iron-forged and tall, their glass panes fogged with age, their light not gone, but sleeping. Beneath them, moss. Above them, branches stretched like distant sky script, unreadable but deeply known. Each lantern bore a name, but when they leaned closer, the letters blurred, like ink soaked into paper, like words too old to hold. All except one, Maren, and then a voice, not behind, not ahead, but within. You are the first to remember. The phrase landed inside them like a stone in water, ripples, stirring. One lantern flickered, then another, not with flame, but with attention, as if something forgotten was turning back toward them. And in the center of the circle, a braid of rosemary, its tip smoldering, not burning, remembering. When they opened their eyes, the hearth before them was unchanged, cold, silent. But the air was different. Brighter, not with light, but with meaning, as though the space had seen them, as though something behind the veil of time had gently nodded. They rose, and there, looped carefully around the inside knob of the door, hung a braid of rosemary, bound in green thread, that had not been there before. They left the cottage slowly. At the threshold they paused and reached into their satchel. There, cradled in cloth, 12 smooth pebbles, gathered earlier that morning from the garden's edge. One by one they placed them on the stone outside the door. A circle, unbroken, whole. One for each lantern. As they walked back through the hollow, Elder Night's branches swayed above them. The wind had risen, not sharply, but with purpose. A few pale petals fell into their path, the kind that only bloom when memory is stirred. That night the Lanternkeeper did not light the whisper light. Instead, they lit the hollow lantern, the one brought from Maren's doorstep. Long cold, its flame thought lost. They struck the match, wrapped in rosemary ribbon, held it to the wick. It caught immediately. The light it gave off was not bright, but it was known. They laid the 5 letters out across their desk, placed the notebook beside them, unfurled the braid, and on the next blank page they wrote no words, just a circle, 12 lanterns, and in the center a single word, remember. At the hearth circle, Wren lit her fire and brewed a tea in 2 cups. She only drank from one. At the market green, a whisper light in the rush weaver's corner bloomed to life. No hand had passed near. And in the heart of Willowmere, where stories often begin just as they're thought to be ending, the light began to hum again. Memory is not what was lost. It is what returns when we begin to listen. The light has changed, hasn't it? Not brighter, not louder, just known, like a memory finding its way home. Some stories leave you with questions. This one leaves you with a circle, 12 lanterns, and one word, remember. Thank you for listening, for being here when the remembering began. The hollow isn't finished. The lanterns haven't all flickered, not yet, but the hum has returned. I'll keep the flame, you keep the circle, and when the next letter finds its way here, we will read it together.